What if I told you that the war we see unfolding today, the headlines, the alliances, the growing threats, is not really new? What if the conflict between Israel and Iran didn't begin with governments, but was written long ago in the Bible? Imagine this. Long before missiles flew and nations picked sides, the heavens already knew how this story would end. Today, we see digital warfare, nuclear weapons, and political chaos. It's easy to think it's all about politics, money, or power. But what if there's something deeper going on, something spiritual? What if this conflict isn't just about land or leaders, but part of a plan written by God thousands of years ago? This isn't just a fight between two countries. It's a prophecy coming true before our eyes. But what does the Bible say about how this will end? Stay with me as we explore ancient scriptures and discover the powerful truth behind this conflict. If you're ready to learn what's really going on, type yes in the comments and let's take this journey together. What comes next might change everything you thought you knew. To understand the never-ending conflict between Jews and Arabs, we need to go beyond history. We need to look deep into the Bible, into God's ancient plan. Imagine a dry, empty desert where time seemed to stand still. In the middle of this land stood a man named Abraham. He wasn't a king or a warrior, just a man chosen by God. Here, Abraham received a promise that would change the world. In Genesis 12 verse 7, God said, "To your offspring I will give this land." But who were Abraham's children? Before Isaac, the promised child, was born, Abraham had another son, Ishmael, with Hagar, an Egyptian servant. Can you imagine what Abraham felt? One son was born through faith in God's promise, and the other through human struggle and impatience. But Ishmael wasn't rejected. God saw him. God loved him. In Genesis 17 verses 20 to 21, the Lord said, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you, I will bless him. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac." This was the moment everything changed. Two sons, two paths, two destinies. One led to the Arab world, the other to Israel. Ishmael became the father of many great nations, many of today's Arab people. Isaac became the father of Jacob, who was renamed Israel, the father of the 12 tribes. Now stop and think. If you were Abraham, watching both sons grow, one carrying God's covenant, the other God's blessing, what would you feel? This isn't just a family story. It's prophecy. Have you ever wondered why the conflict between Israel and the Arab world feels so intense, so personal, and never-ending? That's because it didn't start with politics. It started with a promise, a spiritual divide that still echoes through nations today. If your own family had such a spiritual split, would you recognize it? Or would you only see what's on the surface? The battle you see on the news may actually be the result of ancient words spoken under a desert sky. But this is just the beginning. Because hidden deep beneath the conflict between Isaac and Ishmael is a third branch, a part of history most people miss. Long before Abraham, there was Noah, and when the flood ended, Noah's 3 sons stepped into a new world. Among them was Japheth, a man whose family line would stretch far across the world. Genesis 10 verse 2 gives us a glimpse into that forgotten story, and it may hold the key to understanding today's global tensions. The Bible mentions Noah's sons, and one of them was Japheth. Among Japheth's sons was a man named Madai. His name only appears briefly in the Bible, but his descendants would later join with a powerful people, the Persians. From Japheth came the Medes, and when they united with the Persians, they created the Medo-Persian Empire, a strong kingdom described in the Bible as one of iron and silver. This empire would one day defeat Babylon and become a key part of Bible prophecy. Today, we know that land as Iran. Have you ever thought about this? Iran's roots go all the way back to Noah's time. What we see today, nuclear threats, power struggles, could actually be the result of ancient family lines and God's plan playing out over time. While the world sees Iran as just another political power, the Bible shows us something deeper, a people foretold. Imagine standing beside Noah, watching his sons go their separate ways. Could you ever guess that their descendants would one day shape world history? What if the conflict between Israel and Iran isn't just about politics or war, but part of a prophetic story written thousands of years ago? 3 sons, 3 lines, 3 legacies now meeting in the Middle East. And the story is still unfolding. Do you see the bigger picture now? Or could there be something even deeper still hidden? Long ago, the stage was set. even though most people didn't realize they were watching prophecy unfold in real time. On one side stands Israel, born through Isaac, the promised son. Isaac carried the special covenant that God gave to Abraham. Israel was chosen to walk closely with God, to live by his laws, and to be a light to the world. But Israel wasn't alone in this story. Across deserts and mountains, the sons of Ishmael also rose. Fierce, blessed, and strong, these were Abraham's children through Hagar. They became the fathers of many Arab tribes, shaping the religion and politics of the Middle East. Even though Ishmael didn't receive the covenant, God still promised to bless him. That promise was never taken away. Maybe that's why the conflict between Israel and the Arab world feels so deep. It's not just about land, it's about legacy. And then, from a third direction, came the descendants of Japheth through Madai. They merged with Persia, creating an empire so massive it would one day rise up against Babylon. That empire, the Medo-Persian Colossus, still casts its shadow today through what we now call Iran. Did you ever imagine that Iran's roots go all the way back to Noah's own family? Three ancient lines, Israel, Persia, and the Arab nations, are not just connected by history, but by God's plan. Each one holds a piece of a divine puzzle that stretches across time and continents. Can you feel it? That unseen hand behind the scenes, guiding everything? Imagine watching from heaven as these three lines descended from Noah rise from deserts, mountains, and plains. Would you start to wonder what they were being prepared for? Could you feel the weight of prophecy in every step they took? This isn't just about geography or culture. It's God's design. It's preparation. It's prophecy unfolding. So here's the big question. What were they being prepared for? And why are their paths coming together again in our time? But Persia, modern day, Iran wasn't always against Israel. In fact, there's a surprising moment in the Bible when Persia was used by God to bring hope and healing. Think about Jerusalem in 586 BC. The temple, the place filled with God's presence, was destroyed. The city was silent. God's people were taken into exile by the Babylonians. It must have felt like the end of everything they believed in. Can you imagine that? Being taken from your home, seeing the house of God turn to rubble? Could you still believe? Could you still hope? But God had made a promise. Long before the temple fell, the prophet Jeremiah had spoken these words from God. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. Jeremiah 29 verse 10. It seemed impossible until something amazing happened. God reached into history and moved the heart of someone unexpected: Cyrus the Great, king of Persia. Cyrus wasn't Jewish. He didn't follow the covenant or the Torah. He wasn't a priest or a prophet, but still God chose him. And even more shocking, Isaiah wrote Cyrus's name 150 years before he was born. This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of to subdue nations before him. Isaiah 45 verse 1. Think about that. God called a Persian king his anointed. What does it mean when God calls someone his anointed, especially someone outside of Israel? It means this man had been given God's authority, God's purpose, and God's guidance. And Cyrus did something no one expected. He defeated Babylon. But instead of keeping the Jewish people as captives, he set them free. He gave a command, recorded in the book of Ezra, allowing the Jews to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Imagine the sound of hammers echoing as the temple was rebuilt. The laughter of people returning home after years in exile. Prophecy was coming true right before their eyes. Persia, once considered an outsider, had become a tool in God's hands. Through Cyrus, God showed something incredible. He is not limited by borders, nations, or bloodlines. He can use anyone, even a foreign king, to fulfill his plans. So if God used Persia for good once, could he do it again? Or has something changed? This raises big questions. How does God work today? Is he still raising up unexpected people to shape the world? Could someone the world doesn't expect be part of his plan right now? The story of Israel and Persia isn't just about conflict. It's about the mysterious ways of God, who writes people's names into history before they are even born. Are you starting to see how deep the connections go? Could the ancient patterns be repeating right before our eyes? But Persia's role didn't end with Cyrus and restoration. The story took a darker turn, a moment in history that still feels chilling. Years after the Jews returned and rebuilt the temple, the Persian Empire became the setting for another major spiritual battle. This time, the threat wasn't from outside enemies, it came from within the palace. Under King Xerxes, also known in the Bible as Ahasuerus, a powerful official named Haman rose to power. Haman's hatred was deep, calculated, and deadly. Hidden behind his royal position was a terrifying plan to wipe out every Jew in the empire. Have you ever thought about how close God's people came to being completely destroyed? What if the future of Israel depended on just one person? But God was already way ahead. Unknown to Haman, a young Jewish woman named Esther had been placed in the king's palace. She was an orphan, raised by her cousin Mordecai, but now she was queen in a foreign land. To others, she looked like royalty, but inside, she carried the destiny of her people. When the moment of truth came, Esther had a choice: stay silent and stay safe, or speak up and risk everything. Mordecai's words in Esther 4 verse 14 still echo through time. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Have you ever wondered if your own life, your job, your influence, your platform was given to you for a bigger purpose? Esther chose to act. She bravely revealed Haman's evil plan to the king. Her courage saved her people. The Jews were rescued, the enemy defeated, and once again Persia became the unlikely place of deliverance. But under the miracle was a warning. A spiritual tension had begun. The same land that once brought freedom through Cyrus now gave rise to a plan of destruction through Haman. The same soil that brought life was now carrying the seed of hatred. That spirit didn't die. Isn't it strange how history can change because of one person's heart, whether for good or for evil? And what if the same hateful spirit that once moved through Haman never really disappeared but stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment to rise again? Centuries passed, but the shadow remained. Persia rose once more, not with messages of freedom, like in Cyrus's day, but with words that sounded like ancient hatred. Not with decrees of return, but with threats of destruction. Could it be that the past is speaking to the present? And if it is, are we listening? This story isn't over. In fact, it might be starting again. Do you see it? Or do you still think of Persia as just a place on the map? In 1979, something major happened. The ancient land once called Persia, the empire that freed the Jews under Cyrus and tried to destroy them under Haman, was reborn. But this time, not as a kingdom, as a theocracy. The Islamic Revolution swept through Iran like a storm. The Shah, king, was removed, and a new system took over, a religious government rooted in Shiite Islam. This new Iran wasn't just focused on politics. It was driven by a spiritual mission, and part of that mission was the destruction of Israel. Can you imagine a modern government built on ancient hatred? From the very beginning, Iran's leaders called Israel the Little Satan, a name filled with deep hatred and religious meaning. Their goal? To erase Israel, not just to argue or make peace, but to wipe it off the map. And these weren't just empty threats. Iran began supporting groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, giving them money, weapons, and training. These groups don't just disagree with Israel, they were created, in part, to help fulfill Iran's silent prophecy, to strike at the Jewish people, the people of God's covenant. Even Iran's own constitution denies that Israel has any right to exist. Not to make peace, not to live side by side, but even to exist. But if you look past the politics and weapons, do you feel it? There's something darker happening, something ancient. What kind of force drives a nation to build its identity around destroying another people? Is this just about politics? Or is this prophecy resurfacing? What if the same spirit that once whispered to Haman now speaks through microphones and guides missile programs? What if this isn't just a regional conflict, but a spiritual war going all the way back to the cries of Ishmael in the desert, the promises given to Isaac, and the growing influence of Japheth's descendants? If you lived in Israel today and you knew your enemies weren't just outside your borders, but written about in ancient prophecy, how would you pray? How would you prepare? Iran's revolution in 1979 wasn't just a change in leadership. It was a spiritual shift. While the world sees political conflict, those with spiritual eyes might see something more. The stage is being set again. And the same land that once brought freedom through Cyrus and nearly brought destruction through Haman is again at the center of the unfolding story. Now, the land trembles with prophetic tension. Can you feel it? The ancient players are back on the world stage, and the final chapter of this story may be closer than we think. Deep in the book of Daniel lies a truth so powerful many people miss it. In Daniel chapter 10, the prophet is in a deep state of prayer and fasting. For 21 days, he eats no bread, no meat, and drinks no wine. He's desperate to hear from God, but heaven is silent. Why the delay? Had God ignored his prayer? Then suddenly, an angel appears radiant and urgent. What he says is shocking. The prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Daniel 10 verse 13. Wait, what prince? Daniel was living under the rule of the Persian Empire, but this wasn't about a human king. This was a spiritual power, a dark, unseen force assigned to Persia. And it was so strong that it blocked a heavenly messenger from reaching Daniel for 3 weeks. Let that sink in. Behind Persia, there was a demonic spirit, a powerful being influencing kings, empires, and history itself. So ask yourself, if such a force existed then, what is behind modern-day Iran today? The Bible in Ephesians 6 verse 12 gives us a clear answer. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this world. This means the real battle isn't political or military. It's not just happening in governments or on battlefields. It's being fought in the spiritual world, invisible, but very real. In this realm, ancient spirits whisper into the hearts of leaders. They twist laws, stir hatred, and guide nations into darkness. Could it be that the same evil spirit that resisted the angel in Daniel's day is still active today? Has the Prince of Persia ever truly been defeated, or has it simply changed its appearance? Iran's hatred for Israel isn't just about politics or past conflicts. It's spiritual, it's ancient, it's prophetic. When Iran says it wants to wipe Israel off the map, it's repeating the same dark voice that once whispered in the courts of old kings. Imagine standing next to Daniel during those 21 silent days. Would you have guessed that a fierce battle was being fought in the heavens, just beyond your sight? What if your prayers today are pushing back against the same darkness? This isn't just a clash of nations. It's a battle between realms. It's about prophecy. It's about an evil kingdom that has opposed God's people from the very beginning. And now that battle is reaching a boiling point. But are we paying attention? Or are we distracted by the surface while the real war is happening in the unseen world? Then comes Ezekiel 38, like a dark storm forming at the edge of history. This ancient chapter, written thousands of years ago, describes a terrifying vision, a massive alliance of nations rising together to attack one small, sacred land, Israel. And at the center of this enemy alliance, standing strong among the attackers, is none other than Persia. Modern-day Iran is mentioned in the Bible by its ancient name, Persia. In Ezekiel 38 verse 5, it says, Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them. These names may sound ancient, but their modern identities are clear: Iran, North African nations, and others from the south. But Persia, Iran, won't be alone. Marching beside it will be nations from North Africa, and from the far north, a mysterious and powerful figure will appear, Gog, from the land of Magog. Who is Gog? People have wondered for generations. Some believe he represents regions near modern-day Russia or Central Asia. Others think Gog symbolizes a global leader at the head of an anti-Israel alliance. Can you imagine such a coalition forming today? Iran, North African nations, and northern powers joining forces not for peace, but with one deadly goal: to destroy Israel. What could bring together such different nations, different languages, cultures, and politics into a violent alliance? The answer might not be in politics, but in prophecy. Ezekiel's vision is not vague or poetic. It's clear and chilling: a massive, organized army moving against Israel in the last days. Their goal: total destruction. Their reason: opposition to God's promises. If you lived in Israel today, watching enemies grow louder and alliances grow stronger, would you feel Ezekiel's prophecy coming true? Could we be standing at the edge of a prophecy written over 2,500 years ago? And here's what's even more serious. This isn't just a political event, it's a spiritual moment. Persia, once used by God to show mercy, now stands at the front of a coming war. Gog, still mysterious, is getting ready to act. The stage isn't just being prepared anymore, the actors are stepping into place. Does it feel like history is repeating, but now on a global scale so massive that only prophecy could have predicted it? Ezekiel's message is not a puzzle. It's a warning, a revelation, a glimpse into the final clash between the forces of darkness and the people of God's promise. And as we see the alliances growing and the words getting more threatening, we must ask, are we watching Ezekiel 38 unfold before our eyes? But here's the hope. Even as the storm builds, God is not silent. The prophecy doesn't end with Israel surrounded or nearly destroyed. It ends with God stepping in. When the armies of the world rise against his people, he responds not with whispers, but with power. In Ezekiel 38 verses 18 to 23, God says, I will punish them with plagues and bloodshed. I will send heavy rain, hail, and burning sulfur on them, and their armies and all the nations with them. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Do you feel the weight of that? This isn't just another war. It's God's moment to show who he is, to defend his people and reveal his power to the world. This isn't just a political war. It's not a clash of cultures or nations. This is God stepping in. Judgment is coming not from man, but from heaven itself. There will be hail, fire, plagues, a storm so fierce that the whole world will stop and realize, this is not human. This is God defending his promise. So what are we seeing today? Iran's voice is growing louder. What once seemed like local aggression now spreads across borders. They fund terror. They spread hatred. They chase nuclear power with dangerous goals. And the words from their leaders sound just like the enemies of ancient times. Can you hear it? Can you see it? Persia's shadow from the past is stepping back into the spotlight. Are we watching the pieces of Ezekiel's prophecy come together? Is the ancient coalition Persia, Put, Cush, Magog slowly forming again behind political smiles and secret deals? If you've ever doubted prophecy, now might be the time to take another look. What are the chances that the exact nations Ezekiel named are growing louder, more aligned, and more ready? Now imagine being in the middle of a battlefield. Missiles flying, sirens wailing. But then something changes. Fire falls, but not from bombs. Hail crashes down, but not from clouds. Would you know the difference between a war started by men and a judgment sent by God? This isn't just about enemies. It's about a promise, a covenant. And God never breaks his promise. So when the world rises up against Israel, God himself will step in. The question is no longer if he'll act. The question is, how close are we to seeing it happen with our own eyes? Will you recognize his hand when he moves? Or will you be standing there in awe, saying, surely, this was the Lord? The prophecy is no longer a mystery. It's becoming clearer than ever. In Zechariah 14, the final scene is revealed. The nations will gather against Jerusalem, the prophet says. But just when the darkness is at its worst, God will go out and fight those nations. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. Zechariah 14 verses 2 to 4. Can you feel the earth shake at those words? The Mount of Olives, where Jesus once prayed, wept, and ascended to heaven, see Acts 1 verses 9 to 12, is the very place he will return. This isn't guesswork. This is God's plan with exact timing and precision. Where he first left earth in glory, he will return in power. And when he returns, it won't be to make peace treaties or give political speeches. There will be no talks, no summits, no negotiations. When his feet touch that sacred mountain, the war will be over. Not by surrender, but by victory, his victory. Because this time, he's not coming as the suffering servant. He's coming back as the King of Kings. I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. The one riding it is called Faithful and True. On his robe and on his thigh, he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Revelation 19 verses 11 to 16. Heaven opens, and the moment is filled with holy fire. John describes it in Revelation. I saw heaven opened, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider is called Faithful and True. With justice, he judges and makes war. On his robe and on his thigh, he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Can you picture it? The sky splitting apart, a white horse riding forward, and the King of Heaven coming not quietly, but in blazing glory. He's not coming as a symbol of hope. He's coming as a real king, ready to finish the plan that was written long ago. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to see the sky crack open? To witness, with your own eyes, the one who was, is, and is to come? The nations Persia, Magog, Gog, and all the others that once rose against Israel will be powerless before him. The war that started with Isaac and Ishmael, that passed through ancient Persia, that echoed through the words of Ezekiel, and burned through the pages of Revelation, it will all end not in chaos, but in glory, not in defeat, but in victory. It will end on the Mount of Olives, when the true king takes his throne, and no one will dare speak his name in vain again. So the question is, are we watching this unfold now? Are we getting close to the moment when heaven opens and prophecy becomes reality? Because when Jesus returns, every knee will bow, every eye will see, and no power on earth or in hell will stand against him. His robe will be dipped in blood, and his name will be Victory. Psalm 2 asks, why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? While the world panics over wars, headlines, and nuclear threats, God does not panic. His answer? The one who sits in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. I have placed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. Do you see it? The world may shake, but heaven never moves. Iran may rise boldly. Alliances may form. Prophecies may unfold before our eyes. But God's throne is unchanged. No plan of man or demon can undo what God has already declared. So now, we stand at a crossroads. Not about whether prophecy will happen, it's already written. The question is, what will you do? This is not the time for the church to stay silent. It's not the time for believers to sit back and watch. Psalm 122 verse 6 says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's not just a nice thought. It's a call from heaven. When you pray for Jerusalem, you're aligning with God's heart, his plan, and his people. This isn't about fear. It's about being prepared. It's about understanding the times and choosing to be a watchman, not just a spectator. Yes, the war is written. Yes, the nations will clash. But your part in this story is still being written. Will you align with the king? Will you rise in prayer and bold faith? Because the king is not delaying, he is preparing. And when the final trumpet sounds, it won't sound for the terrified, it will sound for the faithful. The trumpet will sound for those who are ready. So while the nations rage, while Iran makes threats, and as ancient spiritual forces begin to rise again, lift your eyes higher. Heaven is not panicking. Heaven is waiting. And when the king returns, may he find you not afraid but full of faith, watching, praying, paying attention, and ready. Yes, the war is real, but so is the kingdom that can never be shaken. The Bible has been telling this story for thousands of years, from Abraham's journey through the desert, to the rise of ancient Persia, to Ezekiel's prophecies, to the thunder in Revelation. Every name, every place, every prophecy was leading us here to this moment where God's plan meets human rebellion. And now, we're watching it happen in real life. The conflict between Iran and Israel is not just about politics. It's spiritual, it's ancient, it's prophetic. Iran's threats are not just angry words. They are echoes of a war that began long ago when God made a promise, and the enemy tried to stop it. What you're seeing in the news today, missiles, alliances, rising tensions, it's not just about land. It's about the throne. It's about the king. But through all the chaos, one truth never changes. God still reigns. He is not worried. He is seated in power, and his son, faithful and true, is coming back, not to make peace deals, but to rule. So what should you take from this? What should you hold in your heart as prophecy becomes real right in front of you? Here it is. You are not powerless. As part of the body of Christ, your prayers matter. Your voice matters. Your spiritual awareness matters. Psalm 122 verse 6 says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That command wasn't given just for peaceful times. It was given for moments like this. When you pray, you stand with God. You help prepare the way for the king. You become part of heaven's plan. So let this moment wake you up. Don't just be a spectator. Be a watchman. Be a warrior in prayer. Be a voice that says, I see what's happening. I hear God's call, and I choose to stand. Because the war may be written, but your response is still being written, and heaven is watching. If this message stirred something in your heart, don't let it stop here. Comment below, I stand with the king. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to see the bigger picture. Subscribe for more messages based on God's word and Bible prophecy. And if you feel led to support this message, you can do so through a super thanks below. Every gift helps us keep sharing truth during these critical times. But whether you give or not, may God bless you richly for walking in faith and spiritual awareness. Because yes, the battle is real, but so is the victory, and the King is on his way.